Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. There's no videos or anything out on this channel this weekend. It was because I was out of town in Atlanta for my sister's graduation. A much needed, little break from things of my usual routine. It was nice to hang out with the family. It was also really nice to watch the Chicago Blackhawks get another win. I want to make this video to talk about what I think the Blackhawks playoff chances are. To get it out of the way now, I do think that the Chicago Blackhawks can make the playoffs this year, but I want to talk about the game against Toronto first because I haven't been able to give my thoughts. It's been a few days since I've done this, so I'm a little rusty. I'm just kidding. It's like riding a bike. Look, it was a big win. It was a good win. It was an important win for many reasons. I really wanted it, and I've talked about this before on the channel. I really wanted that win specifically against the Toronto Maple Leafs because I consume a lot of hockey media just to try to stay up to date on things that are going on around the league, and also just listen to people that are better than me at what I do. Just trying to learn all the time and stuff. So I watch a lot of Toronto coverage just because that's the hockey media hub, obviously. And so getting the opportunity on Sunday when I was traveling and flying back and just getting to listen to all these different Maple Leafs media personnel talk about this young Blackhawks team and just gush over some of these guys that, I'm watching night in and night out was a real treat. And so I was elated when they got that win because I knew I was going to have a packed Sunday of just listening to all these different shows. And it was awesome. It was a real treat, and I was so pumped about it. But as far as the actual game goes, it wasn't the Chicago Blackhawks' best performance by any stretch this year. I mean, genuinely, I thought it was really sloppy at times, turning the puck over. Again, a really weak second period. Some of the same problems that you've seen all throughout the season from the Chicago Blackhawks, but they're still able to weather the storm and find a way. And that's, I think, kind of the thing with this group. And when you start to look big picture and think about maybe the opportunity of competing for a wild card spot this year, it's like, yes, the Chicago Blackhawks do have these problems. Yes, they are getting a ton of saves above expected. Yes, they have a bunch of brutal turnovers that sometimes lead to really good opportunities for the other team. But it's not like this is a thing that's going to jump out at them out of nowhere, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like it's just going to randomly catch up to them because they've been dealing with it all year long. Like, it's part of this young Blackhawks identity almost, which isn't a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think playing sloppy hockey and turning the puck over is a good thing. But they've been doing it all year and still picking up wins. And a lot of that is off the back of fantastic goaltending, which, I mean, they've just been getting absolutely fantastic goaltending this year, not just from Spencer Knight, but Arvid Soderblom as well when he plays. But yeah, Saturday was another really great performance from Spencer Knight. I feel like I'm starting to feel like a broken record a little bit when I talk about goaltending with this team, just because it's just great every single night. So it's like, yeah, what do you want me to do? Get on here and talk about how good Spencer Knight was again? Yeah, he's phenomenal. Yeah, he's playing like a world-class, true number one goaltender that maybe should get invited to the Olympics. We're seeing it night in and night out. I don't really have to spend much time on that. But then it's not just the goaltending, it's also just this young group being able to score. Like, they've got two really solid forward lines, one that's driven by Connor Bedard and one that's driven by Frank Nazar, two emerging young stars in the NHL. How nice was it to have Frank Nazar back, by the way? I'm glad he only missed a couple because I've mentioned it before. He's the second best player on this team, not including goaltenders, obviously, but he's the second best player on this team. He's massively important for the offense. He plays in multiple situations, although they did take him off the first power play unit. He's still a big part of the penalty kill. He drives his own line, right? Like that second line, things, little pieces on the wings might get moved. You might see Teravainen or Bertuzzi go up or down. He might play with a Mikheyev or Donato, but Frank Nazar is always the consistent on that second line. It's his line, and so when you take out your 2C, that's trouble. And yeah, I just think Frank Nazar is a massive part of this team. So great to see him bounce back after, whatever the injury was. It wasn't anything serious, but clearly something that was nagging and that he had to battle through. So for him to make that play in the third period on that assist on the Teravainen goal, just to dig deep, it was awesome to have him back. And I got to shout out Teuvo Teravainen. A lot of you have been critical of Teuvo Teravainen's lack of ability to score this year. How about that one? What do you guys have to say about that one? I'm just playing around, but a bunch of you do talk shit in streams about Teuvo Teravainen somewhat regularly, and I think we need to pause that, because what a goal that was from Teuvo Teravainen. And then you got the depth. You've got the depth coming up big the last couple games, with Slaggert and Lafferty in the previous game, and now Colton Dock scoring that big goal on the shot from Louis Crevier from the point with just like 4 minutes left or whatever it was. I mean, that's big time. That's what it takes to make the playoffs in this league. It's not, you can't just have good goaltending. You can't just have good star players. You need contributions from your bottom six, and now the Blackhawks are starting to get that, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And so if you've got all those things at once, if you're getting really good goaltending, if you've got some young star players that are really starting to make their imprint on the NHL and really starting to come into their own and become high-level players at the NHL level, you know, you got that top-end talent, and then you're also getting contributions from your depth and your bottom six. I mean, that's a recipe for playoffs, and I do genuinely believe that. A couple of other things I wanted to touch on from the games. You know, after the first and second periods maybe weren't the best, and again, you know, the struggles in the second period continue. Although the Leafs were without Matthews, they were up 2-1 going into the third period. This Leafs team is a pretty veteran-heavy team, right? These guys have all been around the NHL for a long time, outside of Easton Cowan, basically. They've all played in the league a long time. It's a mature group. They had Joseph Woll back. Joseph Woll played great, by the way, after missing the entirety of the start of the season. Joseph Woll played solid. They had the lead going into the third. I heard a statistic today. The Toronto Maple Leafs, with Joseph Woll in net, were 32-0-0 going into the third period with a lead before Saturday. So the Blackhawks are the first team to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs with Joseph Woll in net, being down a goal or more in going into the third period. So pretty interesting stat there. Obviously, I think Maple Leafs fans would say that if they had Austin Matthews, it would be a different game. But if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bicycle, but she doesn't, so she's not. And so the Blackhawks are able to capitalize and played a really strong third period, and they just wanted it a little bit more than the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I've watched a lot of Leafs games this year. The effort they put up against the Blackhawks on Saturday, I mean, was one of the best. I mean, that was genuinely one of the better Leafs games this year as far as like performance and intensity, regardless of not having Austin Matthews. I felt like the Leafs were the better team through most of the first and second period. But this Blackhawks team is just a little bit hungrier. I do want to talk about Artem Levshunov. Artem Levshunov is turning into a star before our very eyes. Heading into this year, there were, you know, a lot of concerns, and at least in my mind, I'll be honest, I never felt like there was a way you were going to be able to rationalize that pick, going with him second overall instead of maybe some other players that should remain unnamed. But I was just concerned. I didn't know kind of what his potential could be. And then at the start of this year, you're starting to see a lot of the same problems, the same bad habits, the same issues. But man, over these past 10 or so games, Artem Levshunov, the progress we've seen, the development in his game is like night and day. It's unfolding before our very eyes. He's getting so much more confident. He's making so many less dumb, like just bad decisions. When he's on the puck, he's making things happen. He's making good passes. He's not forcing anything, but he's just trusting his instincts and his ability. And we saw it again on Saturday. He probably should have scored a couple of goals, to be honest with you. He didn't. He picks up a sick assist on the Ryan Green goal. Great to see Ryan Green finally pot one. Ryan Green's been playing great as well. But man, Artie is just looking so much better. And now you're starting to see it. Now it's all making sense. It's like, oh gosh, this guy is a monster. He can move really well for that size. Wow, the passing ability is really impressive. Wow, this guy is strong as hell. Oh my gosh, he's a right shot defenseman too. And now it's starting to make sense, right? Now it's like, yeah, maybe they should have gone with this guy instead of another small, undersized, offensive forward. It's starting to make sense. You're starting to see, wait, no. This Artem Levshunov fella can definitely become a true number one defenseman, which that was a conversation I've kind of brought up a couple times on this channel this year, is like, do the Chicago Blackhawks have a guy that could be a true number one? Could it be Renzel? Vlasic maybe doesn't have the offensive capacity to be like a true number one. But Artem Levshunov, the way he's performed on the power play, the speed and the strength defensively. There was a play in this game on Saturday where he made a sweet pass to Wyatt Kaiser, who had a pretty open look, but it was a tough angle. Kaiser hits the post, and then Nylander's going the other way on a breakaway, and Levshunov hawked him down and was able to get a stick on him before he could get the shot off on Spencer Knight. So you see all the abilities of Artem Levshunov, and it's scary. Great to see Ryan Green get a goal. I think that's kind of all I wanted to say from the game. Now, what I do want to do with you guys is talk about this playoff picture here a bit. So, as you can tell, our Chicago Blackhawks sitting firmly in the first wild card spot here in the Western Conference. And so now I want to, because it's so easy to be like, yes, this team can make the playoffs, or no, this team won't make the playoffs. But when you make a statement like that, if you're going to say a team like the Chicago Blackhawks, who everyone kind of had written off before the season started as a lottery team this year with no chance of making the playoffs. I mean, genuinely, I was one of those people. The sports book had them at obscene odds to make the playoffs. But now that, we're here and there's an opportunity, at least. I think the most recent data is that they have a 34% chance of making the playoffs this year. You got to talk about who is coming out, right? If at the start of the year you don't think the Blackhawks are going to make the playoffs, but then you're 20 games in, you're going to say, no, they might be able to. Okay, who are you taking out of there? And so when I look around the Western Conference, I think the Chicago Blackhawks are going to be competing for a wild card spot with 4 teams, 2 teams in the Central, 2 teams in the Pacific. I'll start with the Pacific. Now, when I look at the Pacific, I see the LA Kings have honestly quietly played really good hockey. They started a little rough, but they've started to really figure it out. They've got depth. They've got a good group. They're going to make the playoffs again. But when I look at these 2 teams here, the Seattle Kraken and the Anaheim Ducks, I know the Anaheim Ducks are this exciting team who started super hot, really young team, kind of in a similar spot with the Chicago Blackhawks. Some people would maybe suggest that they're maybe a year or 2 along than the Chicago Blackhawks. They certainly have less young players. Their team has a more veteran presence about it. But I don't see the Anaheim Ducks staying in a top 2 spot in the Pacific. I just don't see it happening. You've already seen after their really hot start, I think they've lost their last 3 in a row. So going on a little skid right now, hoping that continues, because I do think that this is going to be one of the teams that the Hawks are competing with. And then same thing with the Seattle Kraken. Look, the Seattle Kraken have played fine hockey. The Chicago Blackhawks have actually had a really tough time against the Seattle Kraken in recent memory. I don't know if they've beaten them at all over the past couple years, which is frustrating, especially for me, because I have talked so much shit about the Seattle Kraken on the internet that I would just really love for the Chicago Blackhawks to get a win against them, and they have an opportunity to do so this week. I'll get into that in a second. However, the 2 teams that I think are going to take those spots are the Vegas Golden Knights. Look, the Vegas Golden Knights they're too good of a team. They're too talented, too much of a wagon. I've watched a lot of Vegas hockey this year. They're going to figure it out. It's going to start clicking. They've had a kind of a rough homestand here, but there's going to be a stretch of games this season where the Vegas Golden Knights are going to snap off 6 in a row. It's just going to happen. Like, I promise you, this team is too good to not make the playoffs. I think they're going to make the playoffs decisively in a top 3 spot in the Pacific. And then same thing goes for the Edmonton Oilers. Look, man, you might hear me say that. You might have watched some Edmonton Oilers games this year and been like, Lee, this Edmonton Oilers team is in a bit of trouble. Like, these guys aren't good. And I'd agree with you. I do not think the Edmonton Oilers are that good. I didn't think the Edmonton Oilers were that great last year, but they went to the Stanley Cup final. That's like, genuinely. I know the roster isn't the exact same from last year. You're still without Hyman. You lose Evander Kane. at the end of the day, this team goes through two players, and it's Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. They're going to carry this team to the playoffs. There's no way they miss in an Olympic year. They're going to figure it out. They're going to click. They're going to start snapping off wins. The Oilers are going to make the playoffs and be just fine. And I don't think that they're going to be a wild card team either. I do just think the Pacific is pretty weak, and so I think they're going to finish in the top three. And so Anaheim and Seattle, and then in the Central, I do think I originally predicted the Minnesota Wild to be in this spot over the Winnipeg Jets. However, I do think that with the rough start of the Minnesota Wild, I think that's probably a team you're going to be competing with. And same thing goes for the Utah Mammoth. So I think the Wild, the Mammoth, the Kraken, and the Ducks are the four teams that us as Hawks fans need to be kind of monitoring and watching throughout the rest of the year, tracking to make sure that the Blackhawks are playing as good, if not a little bit better than them, picking up an extra point here, picking up an extra point there. Those are the teams that I'm going to be watching as the year goes on and as this maybe wild card race starts to pick up, through the new year. So, look, I think that's a good spot. Like if you pencil in Vegas and Edmonton, none of these teams here, with how good the Blackhawks have played, none of these four teams that I just mentioned should make you feel like, oh, there's no chance they can beat out, Utah. Oh, there's no chance they could beat out Seattle. They totally could. The young players on the Blackhawks are proving to be stars, right? All these guys are getting significantly better. As the year goes on, it's only going to get more noticeable. It's only going to get better. The team is only going to improve. Although you might think, oh, this team's been kind of lucky. They're getting a bunch of saves above expected. Whatever underlying analytical stats you want to point to, I'm going to rebuttal and say, yeah, this is a young group. Like most of these guys have not even played full seasons in the NHL. It's only going to get better. Like the team is only going to improve. And so I think that's going to kind of offset some of those underlying analytical worries that you might have about this young Blackhawks team. So that's pretty much it. And then I do want to just finish and close this video by saying this next stretch of games here. Can I find the schedule, please? Thank you, ESPN. This next stretch of games here. Super winnable. And this is what's so beautiful about this situation, how the Blackhawks are in a wild card spot, 18 games in the season. If you told me I was going to be doing this at the start of the year when I was just, breaking open this channel, I would have said you're crazy and I would have said no chance, but here we are. God is good. Look, Calgary on Tuesday, tomorrow, I'm going to be streaming. Be here, be ready, be locked in, be dialed. Winnable game against the Calgary Flames at home. Then you've got the Seattle Kraken on Thursday, another winnable one. Get your get back. You need to beat this team. They're not that good. Beat the Seattle Kraken. I just told you how this is going to be one of these teams that you're probably going to be battling for a wild card spot against as the year goes on. Beat them at home. And then back-to-back, kind of rough. You're going from at home against Seattle at 7 o'clock. Then you got Buffalo on the East Coast at 6. Tough travel day, but the Buffalo Sabres stink, right? You got Calgary and Buffalo in the same week, two of the worst teams in the NHL. And then you've got a wild card team in the Western Conference that you're probably going to be competing with as the year goes on. So win these games. Look, 4 of 6 points would be good. 5 of 6 would be amazing. 6 of 6 would be perfect, right? And so that's what we're hoping for. We're obviously hoping for the best, but I think as Blackhawks fans, we have to temper our expectations, understand that this is still a developing, young, growing team. And look, yeah, I'd be very happy with 4 of 6 here. You don't want to drop any ugly ones early. Take care of business tomorrow against Calgary. You guys have to do your job. Be on the stream. Be dialed in. Be locked in. And let's take care of business this week and kind of entrench ourselves deeper into this playoff picture. Because look, you go down this list. You look at the schedule. There's some tough stretches. There's some tough stretches against some good teams here. There's some tough stretches. So when you've got 3 games in a row here where you can really build off of a positive performance against the Toronto Maple Leafs, take advantage of it and collect those points. That's pretty much it. I'm excited to see you guys on the stream tomorrow. I'm happy to be back in the grind and in the swing of things here on the channel. So videos all throughout the week, streams, post games, you know the rest. I'll see you there. Peace out.